everyone on the team has a valuable role, no matter whether they're the private or they're the sergeant major. So one of the first things that you learn even in basic is that down to the private, everyone has to know how to, I guess, do what's needed to pursue the mission.
Welcome to Sisters Inc., our podcast for and about women business owners, brought to you by Black Enterprise. I'm your host, Elisa Gums. Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in America, and on every episode of Sisters Inc., we sit down with one successful CEO and share how she slays the challenges of being a Black woman in business. Today's episode is all about running a business as a military vet. We're chatting with Natasha Suber Perry, who served our country for more than a decade before founding Suber & Company, which provides co-working spaces and virtual office services to more than 400 clients in Southern Maryland. Welcome to Sisters Inc., Natasha. Thank you for your service, and thanks so much for sitting down with us today.
Thank you for having me.
You served in the military for 12 years. Tell us about the experiences you had there and the skills you developed there that prepared you for a later life as an entrepreneur.
Okay, that's a big one to start with. So I started like a lot of folks really young in service. I joined when I was 19. And I started as the MP. You couldn't not tell me I was not going to go into the Secret Service uniform division and law enforcement. But I started in the Army Reserve. I did 9 years there. Then I followed up with 3 years in the Air Force Reserve. But my first 6 years as an MP, I think kind of was the foundation for me career-wise. I learned so much about not just leadership, but I would even say a certain aspect of servant leadership. So those same principles that I got from at that time, just kind of naturally have been somewhat the foundation for building the team that I have now, which is a phenomenal team of Black women.
Well, I'd love if you could talk a little bit more about that servant leadership style that you developed, started when you were in the military.
Yeah, so I think that the basic premise is that leadership, one has a certain level of accountability, right? So it's not all the glory and, all the great credit when things go right, but just making sure you serve your team and meet their needs so that they can overall meet a mission, right? And along with that is understanding that everyone on the team has a valuable role, no matter whether they're the private or they're the sergeant major. So one of the first things that you learn even in basic is that down to the private, everyone has to know how to, I guess, do what's needed to pursue the mission. If the sergeant is taken out, then the specialist jumps in. If the specialist is taken out, then the private jumps in. And so I think here at Suber & Company, I have 4 wonderful young ladies, but whether it's my operations manager or the young lady sitting at the front desk, we're all able to provide the same level of customer support that a client needs. And if it's something beyond someone's expertise, there are always resources and tools for someone to be able to do it.
I think that's such a great lesson, especially for entrepreneurs, because many of the entrepreneurs I speak with struggle with delegation. They're like, I have to be the one in there doing it. I can't step away from the business. And it seems like you learned that lesson before you even needed it.
Well, you know what? There's learning the lesson and application, right? So I do think, and the girls will say, I don't think I'm all Sergeant Suber about it, but I do have realistic but high expectations for the team because they're so capable and I believe in what they can do and what they can learn, and I'm very invested in their growth. And so the same as when I had that type of investment in me as a soldier, because I was not what someone would typically would imagine as an MP when I first started. So, but I definitely would say with the team that I have now, again, anyone can step in any role, but from a delegation standpoint, I think when you're small, the natural instinct, even just to go from by yourself to hiring your first employee, your contractor is scary, but what you do is you train, as they say in the military. So as you do and as you start delegating and you see how it frees up your time and your space and you can accomplish more things, with practice, you get better with the delegation piece. I was teasing you before we joined some furniture right after this, but at the same time, the young ladies, we all jump in, we all get it done, and we all, we work hard, but we play hard together as well.
Yeah. Some people have a difficult transition into civilian life when their service is over. You became a government consultant and you also started a couple of businesses before Suber and Company. What was the transition like for you?
So I think being in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, the transition probably was much easier for me than probably some who were, stationed, in other parts of the country. So it was a very natural progression. And also, I was in the Reserve Corps, although I did a lot of active training and volunteering, but it still, was an easier transition for me because my foot was half in private sector as well as half in military service. So I just kind of naturally picked up government contracting roles with Department of Defense. That's where my background was. And for years did a lot of planning projects on IT projects. And so ultimately, I always knew I wanted to start a flex space after my first attempt at business. And once I was able to kind of go independently on my own as a contractor, I started, setting aside the funds so I can kind of self-fund opening my first corporation.
Yeah. You just mentioned that you always knew that you wanted to start a flex space. Where did that idea come from?
So that idea initially started way back in the day, 1998 specific. I I I had just had my oldest son. He wasn't even like 6 months old yet, and I was still in college. And I decided to start what we used to call a secretarial service, where people would pay me so many dollars per page to type their papers, their thesis, or if a small business needed help creating forms or anything administrative like that, I would do that. And so I created a massive amount of flyers with my home address and my whole phone number on it and proceeded to post it at every campus in DC, Maryland, near my home. And sure enough, very soon after I did that, people started showing up to my house. And it terrified me because I had a newborn and just didn't think that far ahead. So, I think I was like 20, 21 at the time. So I found a place downtown that did this, where they offered the address and you can kind of book time as you needed and you didn't have to put your personal information out there. And I was thinking, man, I'd love to do something like that and have something near my community because there was nothing like that near where I lived. And so I was very intentional about picking my first location in Waldorf because I felt like it was somewhat underserved. And a lot of times we have to drive great distances to get services like this.
Yeah. So tell us all about Suber and Company. What does the company do? What does it offer? Like, what's the current state of the business?
Well, we are definitely in a stage of growth. I feel like we've been in a pretty consistent stage where we're growing. We serve a little over 450 now active small business clients each month who use us for their basic business infrastructure. So a physical business address, a business phone number, and access to meeting rooms, private offices that are already, moderately furnished. And this kind of gives folks the opportunity to have a real business presence without having to take on the cost of, a full suite, 3-year, 5-year lease. And it just gives people the opportunity to just start right where they're at and grow from there. We've been so blessed to see folks grow from our little initial startup plan to eventually getting full-time space with us, and even some who've gone on to get larger spaces on their own. So we always say, as our clients grow, we grow, and we just love being a part of that growth system.
Yeah. I know you also grown your square footage as a brand in terms of the physical space that you offer to your clients, right?
Yes. So in 2022, we took another big leap and we went from, I think initially it was 1,500 square feet to the next space we did was 3,300. And now we have 8,300 square feet, not counting co-work spacing that we have and balconies and the like. So it's a total of about 10,000 square feet that we're leasing out, whether it's to our full-timers or our part-timers that stop by when they.
And a big part of the business's value to its clients is also sort of the community
Yeah.
that it builds amongst business owners. I know you guys have a member portal with a lot of resources and training. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so that actually kind of was sparked organically and also as a result of COVID. So I think when COVID hit, we may have had about just right at 100 or so active clients a month. And we were, I won't say terrified because we operate in faith, but a lot of us were concerned, whether this was it for our businesses, especially with, the closures and no one being able to come in. And so internally amongst ourselves and our clients, we're all sharing, hey, I found out about this grant. Hey, I found out about this program. Hey, guys, check into this. And so we just started organically sharing as we did, but we just definitely had a fire under us to share resources during that time. And so as things kind of turned around and it seemed like the demand for what we were offering grew during COVID with larger offices shutting down, um, we decided to use an app, a platform that would allow us all to connect because we were gaining more clients than what we could manage these types of communications, just kind of via email and the like. So we set up our first portal and that went very well. And so now we've kind of matured it a little further along and have multiple workspaces, training resources, business events, anything that we can find. And it allows our clients to go in and also post events, share anything that they like to share with the group. They even have subgroups. So, a group of the behavioral health folks get in there. They share, that's a good example. Who takes what insurance? Who sees what types of clients? Hey, I'm looking for a nurse practitioner that does this. So overall, it was a lot of organic growth where that came about. But also, I definitely think COVID was the catalyst for us getting more structured with it.
Yeah. The Small Business Administration offers a number of programs to support veterans in starting and growing a business, as do many other places. When you were starting out, did you take advantage of any programs that were specifically for veterans?
Um, I would not say necessarily any program specific to veterans, but out here in Charles County and in most counties, they have a small business development center. And I'm a shout out Bill Hitting and his team out here in Southern Maryland. But what Bill will do is if there are resources specific to veterans, those of us who are registered clients, small business like ours that register with them, then he shares it with us. So I think a month back, there was like a cohort for veterans for just some exec training and things like that. So whenever things like that come down the pike, our SBDC has been very awesome about sharing those resources. And not just the SBDC, but I would say they partner with our county economic development department as well. So,
Okay. And if you were starting your business today, would you do anything differently in terms of, how the way that you access support or resources as a veteran small business owner?
I definitely, if I were to start all over again, I definitely would take advantage of mentorship a little bit more. I think when you first start, you think you have this idea and you're scared someone's going to take your little idea and run with your idea. And then as you grow, you learn that truly the only way that you succeed and grow is by partnering with others. And so we, now partnered with 6 national partners. We're looking to partner with other operators like ourselves. And so I think if I had taken advantage of from mentoring, reaching out to other veterans who've already done this before, or just other business owners who are kind of in a space where you would like, how do I get to that phase? Or how are they getting capital? Just reaching out and being a little bit more bold about making those connections. I definitely would do that again, do that better the next time if I did it all over again. And then I would say I would take better advantage of accelerators. So we're just celebrating 11 years this month, but there are a lot of, accelerators for whether they're startups or businesses that are scaling like my own, where you kind of really get to get hands-on training and coaching from subject matter experts. So I think that's what I'd do if I had to do again.
Okay. You mentioned a couple of things: mentorship, capital, which is always a big one for entrepreneurs. Was there any particular kind of support that you wished you had back then when you were starting that you didn't have, sort of gaps that you saw in the programs that support veteran entrepreneurs?
Um, I would probably say that there's still a gap from whether I'm starting or even where I'm at now. Oftentimes, there's a lot of support for when you're just getting ready to start, as in there's a lot of help with, let's put the business plan together, let's get a marketing plan together. But sometimes once you actually get started and you start getting clients in, um, those challenges that come with knowing how to, forecast, do your cash flow planning in more detail, so you can use that to grow your business and to just a better plan, not just your growth for the year, but how should you market? How should you track your trends based on your forecast? Things like knowing when to self-fund and knowing when it is time to borrow. Don't be afraid to borrow money to you know, to grow. Even hiring a teammate. I waited until I was almost 9 months pregnant with my youngest child before I took my part-time operations coordinator, and my husband basically promoted her to operations manager full-time, and you can't come back in the office anymore. That was the catalyst for that. But just if I had probably had someone say, hey, Tosh, you're trying to do too much. You have to delegate. You have to let go of some things. Just those type of things when you're in the middle of growing and things are, you have customers now. You're not at the beginning anymore, but you're not here yet. But those in between decisions that you make that can sometimes be expensive, like taking an NCA loan, like a lot of us do, and then when you finally get free of those types of guidance would be a little bit probably more helpful during the stages. Sometimes I still see there's a gap there. But again, a lot of folks are doing this, not just us, just kind of building communities within each other to share resources, say, hey, I did this, don't make that mistake. This is what you do instead, or you know what I mean, that type of thing. But it'd be great if there was a little bit more hands-on training for that, I guess. And that's
Yeah. So there's a lot of help for starting up. And then once you're going, like there's not quite as much help to help you get to the next levels. So you are like intimately tapped into the ecosystem of small business entrepreneurs. You're an entrepreneur yourself. You have a B2B business, so you service a number of entrepreneurs, over 450, as you just said. Is there anything that you're hearing from your fellow veteran entrepreneurs now about what their greatest needs are or concerns in this moment?
I think veteran business owners, minority business owners, women business owners, the biggest pain point is always working capital. You kind of, your businesses grow, they do well, and at some point you realize self-funding is not always the most realistic manner to scale your business, or it's not even feasible or possible. So I think that's typically the biggest challenge is work access to capital. And then the next piece would actually be staffing. Post-COVID, the world has changed in how we approach work. And we have a new generation that approaches work a little differently. And so sometimes there's just a disconnect on, well, I need team members, but I don't quite have the capital to get what I need. So I'm going to invest in someone, maybe not as skilled. And you just kind of run into this cycle of maybe not being able to afford the type of assistance that you need, or not having the ability to grow your team the way you would like. Everyone is not a administrative professional or HR professional, and so sometimes I get truckers in here who are like, I don't have time for all that. Just get me somebody, Tasha, who can do this and do that. Be trying to help with some of that too. But I just think working capital and staffing tends to be the biggest pain points for most of our clients.
Okay. Suber and Company is, of course, a Black-owned, woman-owned, veteran-owned business with DEI initiatives currently under attack. The focus has been mainly on race, but they also affect veteran-owned businesses. Can you speak from any of those lenses about how important it is for small businesses to have access to resources, capital, as you just mentioned, and opportunities? Like, why do we need to keep the support going for these programs?
I'm glad you asked that. DEI is the way the program was structured, even like to say for veterans. It definitely provided a gateway for a lot of small businesses like myself to get access to. I'm speaking, let's just say, to this area in particular, perhaps contracts and work that you would not have had access to alone. I think remember earlier I mentioned partnerships. And so when you're talking about programs like the 8A program or the veteran-owned business programs with the federal government, it gives an opportunity for small businesses like ours to team up with much larger companies as the prime to pursue larger work and benefit from their tool teams, techniques as well. Even programs like the mentor protege program, those programs, kind of have a DEI type mission to them, but it definitely opens the door for some of us that normally wouldn't have access to certain opportunities. So I think that particularly from a veteran's perspective, if we look in the federal workspace, there's so many contracts that are set aside for veteran-owned businesses, and truly that is how a lot of us get our foot in the door to, access those larger paying homes.
Yeah. You mentioned that you are now 11 years in, so you celebrated your milestone 10 years in business last year.
Yes.
Congratulations
Thank
on
you. Thank you.
that. A decade into it now, how would you say that your military past still influences how you approach business?
I honestly think because of the relationship I had in service and because of the collaborative nature of the work, I mean, it's all team based there. I would say, hands down, ranking file and order here at the office. I think that probably is what I carry the most with me from my experience in service. We work extremely hard, almost like how you would say an unsung hero, right? If any given client came in here today, they may not see all of the offices filled, or it might be a quiet day, but these young ladies, they outperform every day. Small tasks, big tasks. Something's always going on when you have 450 some odd folks that you're serving and you're only a team of, I'm going to say 3.5 because I'm not always on site. And there's not always glory for what you're doing. Everyone thinks it looks really easy what we're doing. And so the nature of we have a mission, everybody's working really hard, everyone's bought into it. And we're just really determined to support our clients and make them look good as best as they can. And that's, again, I just think something from the culture that I got from seeing it.
Yeah. I'm sure you've learned so many lessons growing the business since 2014. We always like to end with advice. So, what words of wisdom can you share with other veterans who are considering entrepreneurship?
I will hammer this one home: partnership. You have to partner with people and you have to get a mentor, a couple of mentors, but I definitely would say partnership. And it doesn't have to be with another company that does exactly what you do, but just a company that might complement something that you do to boost your services and you boost their services. And of course, you have to find folks who are like-minded to partner with. But I just can't stress enough the importance of partnering with others And I'll even say this, back to the military teamwork, last piece is you really have to respect and honor your teammates. If they are underpaid, if they are undervalued, um, underappreciated, then you'll get poor performance and high turnover. And no business can function without a solid.
Okay. Thank you so much, Natasha, for sharing your small business success story. Everyone out there, please take a look at the company website, subercompany.com. That's SUBER company.com. You can also follow them on Instagram and Facebook at Suber and Company. Check out the video channel on blackenterprise.com to find Sisters Inc. and other shows from Black Enterprise editors, writers, and experts. Be sure to subscribe to Sisters Inc. on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcasts. And if you like what you hear, show us some love by leaving a 5-star review or put a sister on by spreading the word. I'm Elisa Gums with Sisters Inc. for Black Enterprise. Thank you for listening. For 5 decades, we've had your back. Sisters Inc. and Black Enterprise have everything you need to elevate your excellence.